I was fixing David and Mary's roof myself, saving them $12,000 on labor costs. David recorded me from the yard and shared the video with everyone. He joked, "Look at this clown trying to prove she's handy." Mark posted a meme about it. I gathered my tools and left. 3 days later, a heavy rainstorm struck. The unfinished roof gave way and collapsed into David's bedroom. Emily called, screaming in panic. Then Mary rang and said, "Get this fixed right now." But for 3 days straight, I tore off shingles under 90 degrees heat while they relaxed inside with air conditioning and watched me from the kitchen window. They never offered me a drink, never brought me a sandwich, not once asked if I needed any help. I was up there alone, working for free to save them from spending $12,000 on labor. They said they could not afford it and wanted to use that money for a dream vacation across Europe. David mentioned it would be our first real trip as a family since the kids were born, and Mary kept insisting it was their well-deserved reward after surviving 30 years of marriage. So I agreed to help. I was confident since I had some experience working with a contractor during college and had replaced a few smaller roofs before. This one was large, but still doable. I carefully planned every step in a notebook, watched YouTube tutorials at night, and made detailed lists of materials down to every nail. I borrowed a ladder, rented the necessary tools, bought fresh gloves, loaded my truck, and arrived at their house ready to work. At first they acted excited, hugged me, and appeared genuinely thankful. Mary even remarked, "We always knew we raised someone clever." But everything shifted the very moment I stepped up onto the roof. At first, it seemed minor. David was standing outside capturing me on his phone. I did not think much about it since I believed he wanted to document the progress. However, it became clear he was not recording the work itself. Instead, he focused on me, struggling to haul bundles of shingles up the ladder, occasionally slipping on the incline and pausing to wipe sweat from my brow. I noticed the camera zoomed in carefully. That evening, their laughter coming from the living room caught my attention. They had forwarded the video to the family chat with the caption, "Check out this funny girl trying to prove she's handy." Mark responded with a raccoon holding a hammer meme. Emily joked, "Next time, at least get someone attractive to do it." Early the following day, David played the clip again on television. They watched it as if it were a comedic skit. Yet nobody spoke to me. No words of gratitude or support, just laughter coming through the window while I patched the roof beneath the scorching sun. That was when I noticed a printed itinerary stuck to the refrigerator. 2 weeks in Europe with first-class tickets, lavish hotels, spa appointments, and a private culinary tour in Italy. Everything was reserved ahead of time, before I even began my work. They had no intention of saving money on labor costs, since they were keeping it for themselves. They deceived me completely. They counted on me volunteering and on my willingness to say yes, because that was always how I behaved. So, I continued silently and managed to complete the kitchen side of the roof. I layered the shingles over the living room. I switched over to the bedroom side and told them I needed another day or two to finish everything. David chuckled and said, "Take your time, superstar." He then mentioned something about uploading the video to YouTube. I told him I had to leave for a while, making up a vague excuse about a family emergency. My husband was in surgery, I said. Not true, but believable enough to get out of there. I had no intention of coming back. 3 days later, there was heavy rain. My phone rang just after midnight. It was Emily screaming. The ceiling had collapsed over my parents' bedroom. The rain had seeped through the tarp I left only partially secured. Water poured in. The joist gave way. A nightstand was destroyed. David's suitcase was soaked through. His camera was ruined. The mattress was soaked. It narrowly missed their TV and sound system by a few feet. Then Mary called, her voice flat and furious. She didn't ask if I was okay or if I could help. She just said, "Fix it right now." But this time, I was finished. The morning after the ceiling collapsed, I woke up to 37 missed calls. Text messages kept pouring in. One from Emily said, "Get over here before David does something he will regret." Another from Mary simply said, "This is your mess. You better fix it." No, I did not reply. I slowly scrolled through them, reading every angry word as if studying a foreign language. My name appeared over and over again. Their house was crumbling, and they were searching for someone to blame. Not each other, but the guy who had recorded me and laughed. Me. I assumed they would cool down, yet instead they intensified the situation. Around midday, I received a message from my cousin Leah, who lives just 4 houses away. Apparently, the police had recently arrived. 2 patrol cars were there. My parents informed them that their daughter had carried out unauthorized roof repairs and then abandoned the project. Leah mentioned that the officers did not even enter the house. One stayed on the pavement, asked a few simple questions, then shook his head and advised my David to hire a professional contractor next time. David attempted to persuade the officer to file a report, but he declined. That must have struck a nerve because things worsened afterwards. By evening, my Mary was threatening with small claims court. Emily sent me a doctored screenshot of the group chat, sharing the before and after pictures of the roof as if it was gossip news. Mark, unsurprisingly, joined in with another joke, an image of a partly collapsed house captioned DIY disaster. This is why you hire experts. They twisted the story into something it was not. It was not enough that they mocked me. Now I had to be the bad guy as well. That night, I shared everything with my husband. He stayed silent for a moment. Then he said, "They did not just take advantage of you. They deliberately humiliated you." He was right. I kept replaying that video in my mind. The way they treated it like a comedy skit. The smug tone when my David called me superstar as I descended the ladder on the last day. All while they were planning a holiday I was unaware of. I was never going to be part of that world. So I made a decision. I wrote a check for $15,000 and sent it the very next day. It was more than what they lost and more than the job was worth. No letter, no explanation, just a check. I assumed once they cashed it, they would fix the roof, go silent, and move forward. But I was mistaken. 4 days later, I received a voicemail from Mary. No pleasantries, just shouting. She said they were reviewing some old receipts and discovered I still owed $2,000 from a loan I took 5 years ago. She mentioned they were contacting their bank and might stop the check deposit until the entire debt was settled. That amount I had paid off within 6 months, on time, completely, and they knew it. Yet facts didn't matter to them. What they wanted was control. That check wasn't seen as a gesture of peace. Instead, it was viewed as a sign of vulnerability, proof they could press even harder. Then David left a voicemail too, shorter, but even more threatening. He said, "You think you can just walk away from this? We are not finished with you, Audrey. You still owe us." Money was no longer the issue. It never truly was. I didn't return the call or send a text. That night, I sat on the porch with my husband and we talked. He said something that stayed with me. "You gave them everything, and they gave you nothing, not even basic respect, and now they want even more." He asked if I was finally ready to be done with it all. I hesitated to answer, but deep down, I already knew. After I blocked them, the silence lasted barely 2 days. I thought maybe they would finally... The message made it clear that the check was supposed to put an end to everything, that I had finally drawn a boundary they could not cross. Yet on the 3rd morning, I opened my email to find a long letter from my David with the subject line, "Read what you owe us." It read like a declaration. 3 paragraphs in bold and 2 entirely in capital letters. He claimed I had disrespected them, made them look foolish, embarrassed our entire family, forced them to hire costly contractors, and worst of all, behaved as if money could undo the damage I had caused. He said the check felt like an insult, as if I was simply buying my way out of guilt, and that such conduct would not be accepted in this family. He concluded with, "We are considering our next steps legally if needed." Attached were pictures of their freshly repaired roof, the one they managed to fix just 2 days after cashing the check. A professional team in matching shirts stood beside the new shingles neatly stacked on the driveway. The caption read, "The way it should have been done from the start. No thanks." There was no recognition that they could only afford this because of me. Only blame. Always blame. I sat at the kitchen table staring at the screen, and for some reason, I began to laugh. Not because it was amusing, but because it was so predictable. I could have written that email myself if I tried. It was exactly the script they always followed. Twist the narrative, erase any help, shift the fault. But that week, something was different. Suddenly, my cousin Eric reached out. I had not heard from him in many years. He was always the quiet type at family events, the one who sat quietly in the corner, absorbed in his phone. He told me he had seen the video David shared in the family group chat, the one showing me struggling on the roof with a mocking caption. Apparently, after the collapse, my parents began telling everyone I had abandoned them midway through the project, refused to finish the job, and blamed them unfairly. They claimed that I left the house dangerously exposed, ignored their calls, and had a reputation for being unreliable. However, they overlooked one important fact. The internet never forgets. Eric had saved the video, David's ridicule from the lawn, where it was clear I was sweating and working alone without any assistance. He showed the clip to his father, who then passed it on to others, and just like that, the false story began to fall apart. A few days later, the messages started arriving. Aunt Deb wrote, "I saw the video. Honestly, Audrey, I do not know how you endured it as long as you did. I would have quit on the first day." My cousin Lindsay sent, "Your dad shared that clip as if it were a joke. He never expected anyone to defend you. I am glad some of us did." It was then I understood my parents were not only upset, but also losing their audience. They had controlled the narrative for years. I was always the struggling daughter, the one they supported but also claimed borrowed and forgot. Now others were recalling the past differently, remembering how I worked through college to cover my rent. There was the time I lent David money for his car repairs and never asked for it back. I used to mow their lawn every weekend whenever they were out of town. These efforts went unpaid, yet they remembered. My parents simply didn't expect it to come to this. However, not everyone chose a side. Some kept quiet. Others insisted it was merely a misunderstanding. Mark, the relative who usually shared memes, fell silent. No words since the roof collapsed. His silence felt almost better than an apology. Then the voicemail came from a blocked number. Mary said they had consulted a lawyer and claimed they had evidence that I owed them $2,000 from 5 years ago. According to her, they were entitled to pursue legal action, and if I did not admit to the debt, they would file a claim with the county. She concluded by saying, "Everyone agrees you need to make this right." Everyone. That word struck me like a slap. That evening, I played the message for my husband during dinner. At first, he said nothing, just put down his fork, opened his laptop, and started typing. When I asked what he was up to, he replied, "I'm creating a list. Every favor, every dollar you ever paid back, every errand you ran, every hour you worked on that roof. If they want proof, we'll give them proof." He continued typing diligently while I sat there watching him build a defense like a skilled lawyer in court. At that moment, I realized I wasn't alone in this. I never truly had been. I merely forgot what support looked like. Because I grew up in a home that never showed any appreciation, I found myself staring at the paycheck stub still left on the counter. $15,000 was their set price, and I had already settled that amount. Yet now, they were demanding something more. By the conclusion of that week, the list my husband was compiling had turned into a comprehensive document. Dates, screenshots, receipts, every occasion where I had helped my parents over the years were recorded. From the summer, I covered their electric bill without a word to the moment I skipped a job interview to assist my dad moving furniture before their garage sale. He named the file "What Audrey Owes versus What Audrey Gave." He even uncovered transfer records showing when I repaid the $2,000 loan, marking each transaction clearly. I remember looking at the final figure and realizing that I had actually paid $180 more than required. I had no recollection of this, but the records were there in black and white. I felt ready to send everything to them. However, something changed. On Sunday morning, I was outside watering plants when a silver SUV parked in front of our home. At first, I did not recognize it, but when the door opened and my dad stepped out, I froze. I had not seen him since the roof had fallen in. This time, he was not holding his phone, no smile, no camera. He walked slowly towards me, looking around as if unsure if he belonged there, and then stopped about 5 steps from me. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then he said, "We need to talk." I asked how he had found my address. He answered that Emily had given it to him. It all started when she helped us with the move. I nodded slowly and rested against the fence. I told him I was unsure if talking would make a difference. He paid no attention and asked if we could sit together. I refused. So there he stood sweating, explaining he did not want things to get out of control. That was the exact word he used, get out of control, as if everything happening was just a big misunderstanding. He admitted they might have overreacted, but I needed to realize how tense the situation was. The vacation was not just a simple trip, it was a celebration of making it through a challenging year. He said that the check I sent seemed confusing because it came across as an insult. Then he said something that pushed me over the edge. "You used to be so grateful. What happened?" That was when I went back inside. I left him standing in the yard. I did not slam the door or say a word, just quietly entered the kitchen where my husband was watching through the window. He asked if I was all right. I replied, "Not yet, but I will be." I thought it would end there, but that was not the case. Later that night, someone tried to break into my truck. Nothing was stolen, but the lock had scratch marks and the glove box was open. It might have been a random act or someone searching for loose change, but my instincts said otherwise. My parents knew what kind of truck I drove, and they were not used to being ignored. I decided to file a police report just in case. The officer asked if I had any enemies. I laughed quietly and said, "Only the kind who claim they love me." Several days later, a call came from a private number. Once again, it went to voicemail. This time, it was Mary sobbing. She said they were injured, that the family was falling apart, that none of them wanted things to escalate so much. Then she said something I will always remember. "You are not the only one who knows how to cut people off." I played that message for my husband as well. He did not respond, just reached across the table, took my phone, and blocked the number once more. After the attempted break-in and that final voicemail, I thought everything would finally calm down. There was little left to discuss, and I had already taken every safety measure except changing my phone number. David even suggested considering relocating if the situation worsened, but it was not finished yet. Only 3 days later, as I was leaving work, I noticed a note slipped under my windshield wiper. It had no envelope or signature, only folded printer paper. I unfolded it cautiously, preparing myself. It read, "Jam. We will not forget what you did. This will not end until you make it right." There was no name and no direct threats, just that message. But the handwriting was unmistakably Mary's, that strange cursive style she always used. I recognized it immediately, and the paper carried her perfume scent, the same strong floral fragrance she sprayed on everything. When I arrived home, I didn't even take the note inside. I dropped it onto the fire pit and lit a match. David and I sat quietly on the porch while it burned, neither saying a word. I believe. We both understood that the last fragile connection was breaking. The following morning, my cousin Eric reached out again. His voice was hesitant, as if he were navigating a dangerous path. He explained that my mother, Mary, had appeared without warning at his mother Deb's house and caused a complete upheaval. She was weeping, accusing everyone of turning against her, claiming I had poisoned the family against her. Eric said she accused me of extorting them, attempting to buy their silence. She even threatened to file a harassment complaint. Aunt Deb warned her to leave immediately or she would involve the authorities. Everything was falling apart. Yet the worst part was not the threats, the manipulative guilt, or even the note I received. It was realizing that my parents, who once professed unconditional love, had revealed the true nature of that love. It was control and leverage, nothing more. That evening, my husband sat beside me on the couch with his laptop open, displaying a detailed timeline. Every receipt, every message, every bank record carefully sorted, color-coded, and organized. He assured me that if they made any legal moves or otherwise tried to harm me, we would be prepared. I expressed my gratitude, and he told me he was doing it for my sake, not for theirs. Then he said something unexpected. Cut them all off, every single one. This time for good. Not just your parents, but also your sister Emily and anyone who attempts to pull you back into this mess. I hesitated, not because I disagreed, but because I realized how long I had waited to hear those words. I started with my sister. Then a few cousins who had stayed silent became involved, followed by the group chat. I chose to remove myself and muted every conversation thread. Ultimately, I blocked David and Mary on all platforms, including email, phone, social media, and even the shared cloud folder Mary used to upload family pictures. I deleted everything and did not feel any guilt. Instead, a wave of relief washed over me. This was not about revenge or seeking justice, but about protecting myself and surviving. I imagined they might attempt one final move, a knock on the door, a letter from a lawyer, some dramatic gesture. Yet nothing happened. Neither that week nor the next was there a sign or message, just silence. For once, they were the ones waiting for my response. It took 4 weeks for the peace to be interrupted. By that time, I was starting to appreciate the calm. No voicemails, no surprise visits, and no notes left on my windshield. My sleep improved significantly. My husband remarked that I looked transformed, as if I had stopped bracing myself for an inevitable blow. Then, unexpectedly, Emily appeared at my workplace without any notice or warning. She entered as casually as someone dropping off a parcel, but snapped into urgency the moment she saw me. "You need to talk to Mary. She is falling apart," she said. I told her I was busy, but she dismissed that. "She is sick because of this, Audrey. She hardly eats or sleeps. She claims you destroyed the family. Now she remembers the loan." I simply stared at her. Emily continued, "She insists you never repaid it." Mary discovered an old notebook as proof. They seemed willing to forgive before this. I might have just apologized and tried to make things right by giving her something back. She actually said it like that. "Make it even." I did not raise my voice and did not say anything exaggerated. I simply told her directly that I had already paid them even more than I owed. I would not give them another penny or spend another moment on them. She scoffed, called me selfish, and walked away. That evening, I shared everything with my husband. He did not react in shock, but said calmly, "Then it is time." Together, we sat down and wrote a message that was never meant to be sent, only to be spoken aloud once and then erased. This message contained everything I had never expressed to them, every moment I had swallowed silently, every pain I had overlooked without acknowledgement, every apology I had given that they never deserved. After reading it aloud, I deleted the message and blocked the last phone number connected to them. My parents were now completely cut off. No contact, no distorted stories, no guilt to wield as a weapon, nothing. Just when I believed that chapter of my life was closed, something unexpected occurred. That weekend, my dad's brother, Mark, the one who usually stayed out of family conflicts and rarely spoke during gatherings, called me. His tone was calm and steady. He said, "I witnessed everything but kept out of it because I thought it would settle down, but it did not. I want you to know that you made the right decision." I was speechless, unsure how to respond. Then he said something that made everything stand still. "You are not the first one they have treated this way. You are just the first who walked away and refused to return." Coming back crawling. The silence I had been living in was not empty. It was filled with all the things I had not understood before, all the people who had watched, waited, and finally uncovered the truth. In that instant, I realized I was not merely breaking a cycle. I was putting an end to it. I glanced at my husband. He gave me the smallest nod as if he already knew everything. And for the first time in my life, I experienced freedom. It has been 2 months since I last heard from my parents. No texts, no calls, no unexpected visits, just complete silence. At first, it felt like a wound that had finally closed. Now, it is beginning to feel like a dimming light, gone, yet leaving a lasting impression. I rebuilt my daily life, concentrated on my work, and spent the weekends renovating our home with my husband. We finally completed the sunroom he had always dreamed of having. It has become our favorite spot, bright, calm, and full of promise. We laugh there over morning coffee, planning trips on our own terms. Then, last week, something changed. There was a knock at the front door. Standing there was my niece, Emily's young daughter, clutching a small fern in a worn terracotta pot. She looked anxious and quiet, unsure why she was there. "And Audrey," she said with tears in her eyes, "Mary told me to give you this and she asked me to say sorry." I crouched down. My heart dropped and held its breath. The fern felt heavier than it should. I had missed birthdays and Christmases. I hadn't seen her since she was 5 years old. Now she was 8. She appeared taller, more cautious, yet still hopeful. Before I could say anything, she turned and walked back across the yard, heading toward the gate. Then came the soft sound of footsteps and a voice, her mother calling out, "Leave it, Kira. Come home." That was the moment. A brief glance, an unspoken gesture, a partial message conveyed. I brought the fern inside. It needed repotting and richer soil. I placed it near the window. It seemed appropriate. Their apology arrived half-hearted, drooping at the edges, uncertain about where it belonged. David watered it gently. That evening, I found myself reflecting, families are complicated, apologies even more so. But forgiveness is not simply on or off. It is a journey, not a switch to flip. Perhaps this small plant marks the beginning of something new, or maybe it will remain a reminder that some things will not flourish without dedication from both parties.